with me in the different actions. At the beginning, the international dimension, in this session we will focus, our main target group will be the higher education institutions, and that's why also all the actions that are presented have as main target group the higher education institutions, but they are not the only one. But in order to go a little bit more in detail, I will show you a video that it's exactly a presentation on what is the international dimension of Erasmus+.
Hello, my name's Adrian Veal. I work at the European Commission in the Department for Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. And in the international unit where I work, we manage the international dimension of the Erasmus Plus program. So I'm going to explain what this international dimension means and the ways that you could get involved to translate your ideas for cooperation into an Erasmus Plus project. But first of all, maybe we need to set some things straight. How much do you know about Erasmus Plus? It's about students, but it's not only about students. It's about individuals a lot, but it's not only about individuals. It's about Europe to a large extent, but it's not only about Europe. And it's about higher education to a large extent, but not only about higher education. So I'm going to explain what these other opportunities are, especially these about higher education. So I'm going to explain what these other opportunities are, especially
I will go out. Okay. As you have seen, unfortunately, the video is not, we have a technical problem, so we will put the link on what is in the international dimension to the video on our website, and then you can have a look. And I will try to summarize what it was said during the presentation of my colleague, Adrian Veal. So the main idea of, as it was already mentioned by Adrian, the Erasmus Plus is not only about higher education, it's not only about students mobility, but it's also about, it's mainly about cooperation. And for doing this, we have different actions. Today, we have chosen to focus on the international dimension and on the main actions dedicated in this framework to higher education institutions. But of course, they are not the only eligible potential beneficiaries, and we will see during the presentation for each action who can apply for each action. So today with me, there are several colleagues from the agency, and we have, in fact, Mr. Jasper Witteven, who will present the Erasmus Mundus action. I'm Giordana Bruno, and I will present the capacity building in higher education action. Then we will have Paweł Krepański, who will present the capacity building in the field of vocational education and training. We have also Mr. Roland Farksas, who will present the virtual exchanges on higher education and youth, and Mrs. Ilenia Destito, who will present the Jean Monnet actions, and also Mrs. Laura Tudor, who will present you the financing and submission modalities. So we have a full morning session, as you can see, in which you can have an idea about the funding opportunities that we have in the framework of the international dimension of Erasmus+. In this framework, of course, we have also other info days that are planned for each action. And on our website, you can really find out all the information about that. If you're really interested in applying, I really advise you to check and to follow us, because we have really put a lot of efforts in that. And we really think that following all the session, you can receive a lot of advices. We will now start the session with the Erasmus Mundus action and Mr. Japser Witteveen.
Much into detail because we have a limited amount of time. So I'll do my best to give a general overview. So first, let me situate where Erasmus Mundus is put in the overall program of the Erasmus Plus program. So where the joint master degree was situated in the key action point 1, it's now moved to key action point 2. In the Cooperation for Innovation and Good Practices. It's under the cooperation model Partnerships for Excellence, because the focus is on excellence. And under the action, there's talk about 2 lots. It just basically means the 2 funding schemes that are available under the Erasmus Mundus action. So here you can see the Erasmus Mundus action exists of 2 lots, like I said. First is the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters, and then there's a new component which is added since 2021, which is called the Erasmus Mundus Design Measures. I will start first explaining about the Erasmus Mundus Joint Masters, because the design measures, although the principle would be that you first apply for these design measures, it's best to know what a joint masters looks like in order to properly apply for the design measures. I will go to the next slide. So first, what is a Erasmus Mundus Joint Master? Like it says, it's a high-level integrated transnational study program at master level. It's open for all disciplines, so any topics, focusing on excellence in that specific field. And it's executed by an international consortium of higher education institutions, not only from different countries worldwide. I will get back to that a little bit in detail in terms of member states, associated countries, and non-associated countries, because there's a difference in the Erasmus Plus way of thinking about that and how Erasmus Mundus implements it. And then the last, offering high-level scholarships to excellent students worldwide. So the Joint Masters is provides funding for the higher education institutions, but also scholarships for the students. What are the requirements for a Joint Master? So the main, it says in the title, of course, is that it's a jointly designed, fully integrated curriculum. What this means is that the consortia partners work together in setting up the masters in a joint manner. So this means that the student selection is done in a joint manner. The mobility arrangements are organized in a cooperative manner, and they plan and decide on that all together. The evaluation and examination modalities are done together. Also mutual recognition of the outcome of the masters, that there's a joint quality assurance mechanism, and then also the administrative and financial mechanisms, that they are all done in a joint manner. So then to apply, the beneficiary will be a consortium of at least 3 higher education institutions. And here I'll go a little bit more into detail about the meaning of, let's say, what used to be called program countries and partner countries. So Erasmus Plus makes a distinction between, on the one hand, member states, countries and associated countries, which are countries that have signed an association agreement, and then all other countries that are called non-associated countries. For Erasmus Plus, it's important to make that distinction because it has consequences in terms of access to benefits, etc. But for Erasmus Mundus, this is actually in the new program not so much the case, except for the way the consortium has to be set up. So at least 3 higher education institutions, of which 2 must be countries, either member states or associated to the Erasmus Plus program. But then, and this is an important part, one of the 3 can actually be a non-associated country, and this is done in order to, well, the topic that we talk about now, internationalization, is to attract worldwide higher education institutions. Yes, then there's international outreach to attract excellent students worldwide. And there's, of course, the compulsory physical mobility for all enrolled students. So at least 2 study periods in 2 countries for minimum of 1 academic semester each. And then, of course, these 2 countries need to be different from the student's country of residence. Then this is also important. I will get to that in a later stage, a bit more in detail. Also, the contribution of scholars and guest lecturers in order to achieve the excellence and to contribute to an excellent program or master's that is delivered. And then again in the jointness, a joint degree or multiple degrees. So this can be a single diploma awarded by at least 2 of the higher education institutions, or multiple degrees, which means that at least 2 diplomas are awarded by 2 higher education institutions. These degrees need to be mutually recognized by all the partners and belong to the higher education degree system of the countries in which the higher education institutions are based. So the recommendation is, of course, and that's the goal, to issue a joint degree where the national legislation allows it. So, and we see a positive trend that more and more master programs are actually able to issue this joint diploma, and that's really an important part part of the program, of course. So what does let's say the grant agreement look like, and then the joint master, what does it look like? So it's a fixed grant agreement of in total maximum 74 months, and that is not related to the length of the actual master. There's a commitment to enroll a certain number of students. I will get back to that at a later stage as well. And at least 4 master editions should be held. I think before this was called intakes. We talk about editions now, and they last or either 1 year or 2 academic years. So then the start of the first edition should be no later than the academic year following the year of the project selection, and again, the mobility at least 2 study periods in 2 countries, of which at least 1 in an EU member state or a third country associated to the program. Then there's also the geographical balance. There's not much limits to it, but no more than 10% of the total scholarships, so in the total duration of the grant, can be awarded to students of the same nationality. Yeah. So who can apply? So taking, what kind of organization can take part? I will go a bit more into detail in the next slide, but already tackled this one. So applications can be submitted by any eligible higher education institution. Taking, what kind of organization can take part? I will go a bit more into detail in the next slide, but already tackled this one. So applications can be submitted by any eligible higher education institution. What kind of organization can take part? I will go a bit more into detail in the next slide, but already tackled this one. So applications can be submitted by any eligible higher education institution. Erasmus Charter for higher education, and the higher education institutions non-associated have to sign in the agreement, the association agreement that they sign. They have to adhere to the principles of this charter. So again, the minimum consortium is 3 higher education institutions from 3 countries, and again, at least 2 need to be part of the need to be a member state or a third country associated to the program. And then, of course, you can add optional partners, and they don't have to necessarily, they can be any organization. Which means that, yeah, I will not go into detail here. I'll do that in the next slide. So if you see, there's different partners playing a role in the joint master. And this is important also to recognize what the role is in order to see how maybe in the future, if you're interested in applying, for example, for the design measure, how you can become, for example, partner of a consortium, etc. So again, the guest lecturer or scholar is an important part in order to obtain the excellence. It's interesting because there's 2 ways of becoming a lecturer or scholar to a joint master program. Some consortia publish open calls where they want to attract lecturers, but you can also, as a scholar or lecturer, if you think that you can contribute to the program and you see an opportunity there, you can actually contact the consortium yourself. Then there's the full partner. The full partner means that you're part of the consortium. And this means that you have obligations and you are actually called beneficiary. This is the difference with the associated partner who can be partner up and deliver certain, how would you say that? Who can contribute to the program but is not a part of is not the beneficiary, so will not directly be involved in the grant agreement. And then you have the coordinator, and they are the ones who are in charge of executing the joint master. And associated partners are interesting because they can be any type of organization, and for example, they are also partners that come from the world of work, and for example can be the institution where the internships are done, which is also part of the joint master. The students have to go through a mandatory internship, and we see that in the joint masters, the associated partners most of the times take that role up. Now, so you can see that if you'd like to apply, your role can switch. I mean, you can go from full partner to associated partner and to coordinator, of course, if you fulfill the requirements. But it's interesting to see if you're interested to apply, to see in what role you can actually function, and maybe at a later stage apply for the full joint master program. Then, so there's a second component, which is as a student, of course. We talked about what the higher education institution's role is in the joint masters, but there's a big part are the students, of course. So it's open to students worldwide, and the best ones can benefit from scholarship, and this is up to maximum 1,400 euros a month per student, and it covers the subsistence and installation and travel, plus a fee waiver. Then there's something specifically added to the new joint masters, which is attention to students with special needs. So in case, for example, for the mobility, in case of disability, there's a specific pot of money reserved in order to support students, for example, with ability, and this is important, so that it opens up for everyone, and for the program to be more inclusive, of course. So the students, one thing also, there is a maximum of 60 scholarships holder for the entire duration of the program. So which means the entire 74 months that are available. But and students can apply directly to the consortium. There is, I think it's one of the most visited websites of the European institutions. It's a catalog where you can find all ongoing Erasmus Mundus joint masters. So please, if you are a student, go and have a look there. Then, so we're talking about the scholarships that cover the 60 students for the entire program, but there is an additional there's additional funds foreseen, and they are coming from different instruments, so they're not related to Erasmus Mundus, they are or the Erasmus Plus. They're different instruments. One is the instrument for pre-accession assistance, and one is the neighborhood development and international cooperation, so the IPA 3 and the NDICI. These programs, they provide additional funds for in total 35 students from 9 target regions, and I will so these go on top of the 60 scholarships that are given out under the program. And the target regions are these are the 11 ones. I will not go too much into detail. You can find the information in the program guide. Please have a look there. But it's interesting to know that if you find students from these target regions, there is extra funds available to provide scholarships there, which is interesting. And it is of course meant to attract, to make the international part of this program even stronger, so to attract students from areas that might have been underrepresented before. So again, to go a little bit more into detail, what the funding rules for the grant are. So it's one simplified grant. There's two main targets. On the one hand, the European higher education institutions, and then the students. So the higher institutions get, so there's three types of unit costs under the grant. There's the institutional cost, which is related to the higher education institutions, and the institutional costs, the contribution is for the implementation of the program, and the amount is 750 euros per month per enrolled student of any of the countries. And then again, there's the scholarships, like I explained beforehand, which is related to the students taking part, and also the individual needs, which is for, like I explained, for the people with disability, for example. So that was the Erasmus Mundus Joint Master. I would like to go now into this new component, which was because the process to get to the stage where you can apply for a joint master is, as you see, pretty tough. You need to anticipate a lot. You need to have everything in order, and it requires a lot of work. And so there's the idea to help institutions with that by making this new component, which is the design measure. So this program is actually meant to give you the opportunity to launch the basis for a joint program, so that afterwards you are set and ready to apply for the joint master program. So the rationale is to develop new, innovative, high-level, integrated transnational study programs like the AMG and the EMJMs, and to diversify the offer of JM programs, and also involve underrepresented EU member states and associated countries and their institutions. It's a much more simplified type of funding scheme. There's one beneficiary, and they mobilize a group of other higher education institutions. So it's not the same as a joint master. It's one beneficiary grant, and it's fixed for 15 months, and it's a fixed lump sum contribution of 55,000 euros. Again, the applications can be submitted by any eligible higher education institution worldwide, so no difference between member states, associated or non-associated countries. And for the higher education institutions in the member states or the associated countries, you do have to have this valid ESH, which is the Erasmus Charter for Higher Education. So there is a goal for this design measure, and it is meant to establish a jointly designed master, which has a fully integrated curriculum delivered by a consortium, and then again the rules as explained in the joint masters program. And the aim is to attract excellent students, include the physical mobility, and either lead to joint degree or multiple degrees. So again, like the joint masters, it's the idea to have a joint program design and joint procedures. The administrative and financial management should be done jointly. There's common services offered to the students. The promotion and dissemination is also joint. You have a partnership and a student agreement and a joint degree policy and launch of accreditation process. So that is what a AMGM should look like, and therefore you can try to obtain that through the design measure. How can you apply? You simply go to the funding and tender opportunities portal, and you search for the abbreviations EMDM, EMJM, and you'll find all the information. The call will be opened soon, very soon, so I suggest that you keep an eye out. It can happen any day. The program guide, I think, is already published. Then the deadline for these applications is 16th of February of 2023, and the selection results should be out in the summer of 23. So the overall budget is 120 million euros, 170 for the EMJM and 3 million for the EMDM in total, which is divided under 30 projects for the joint masters and 55 for the design measures. I think I might have forgotten a couple of things, but again, please consult the program guide, and more importantly, if you have any questions related to the presentations, please go to this, write an email to this functional mailbox, and we will happily provide you with answers to your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jasper, for this very interesting presentation. We will now continue with capacity building in higher education. So it's my turn then again. I just want to give you also some information. If you want, we will answer some of the questions you raised. And if you want to ask questions, please use the functional mailbox of capacity building in higher education, from which you receive the link to the web streaming of today. Then, of course, in a later moment, we will distribute and disseminate the question for the other colleagues to the correct functional mailbox. Or if you want to ask questions afterwards, please use the functional mailbox that they are showing in their PowerPoint presentation. All the PowerPoint presentation will be published at the end on the website from which you registered. So we will be next week, everything will be available. So I go out yet. Details afterwards. But what does it mean, capacity building? So it's related with development, with skills, with coaching, with knowledge, with teaching, with learn, with support, and it's really mainly focusing to third countries. So and in particular to development countries, and this is why also we use for funding this action the funding instruments coming for capacity building and for development. In capacity building in higher education, this means that we are focused on the needs of the third countries not associated to the Erasmus Plus program, and we are targeting priorities of the third countries not associated to the Erasmus Plus program, and matching them with the EU priorities for these countries. What does it mean? That, of course, I mean, together in the policy dialogue with these countries, some policy areas were identified and were put in place for each of the region presented. And this means that when you have to apply, you have really to focus not only on the needs of the third countries that you are targeting, but also you have to match with these general priorities that we call overarching priorities that they have been decided at the policy level. And this is very important. But of course, considering that it's the European Union who is funding this project, these priorities match also with the general priorities of the European Union. And, but the purpose of the project for which, of the proposal that you will prepare must be the maximizing of the benefit to the third countries not associated to the Erasmus Plus program. So, of course, the institution, higher education institution, or all the eligible organization also from the European member states or from the third countries associated to the program can participate as well. But in these cases, the project should really focus on the needs of the third countries, not associated to the program guide. And this is really fundamental because this is something that during the evaluation of the proposal is really analyzed in depth by the external expert that we use for the analysis and for the evaluation, but also by the evaluation committee. And what does it mean, this? That what we are trying to do with this project is to support the relevance, the quality, the modernization, the responsiveness of higher education institutions for socio-economic recovery, growth, and prosperity. Of course, what we want is that all the countries that perhaps are a little bit behind or for which growth it's an issue yet, that they can benefit from the experience of the other higher education institutions, but also that they can ameliorate and improve their situation. And of course, this is particularly important in this moment because with the economic globalization, we have had some challenges, and in some countries it's even more evident than in others. So our project should also contribute to the human development and try to help the fragility, to help and to solve fragility and to help to the rising social, economic, and environmental equalities. So they should be able to help people that are in a less easy situation. And of course, with the crisis that we had with the COVID-19 pandemic, these inequalities have been raised and became in some cases even more evident than before. That's why all our projects should really try to focus on that and to help on the basis of the needs analysis of their institution, on their countries. They need to help in order to solve this problem. And of course, this is not an isolated initiative in the framework of Erasmus+, but as you can see also in the other actions, you will see that everybody, all the actions are going, at least the one for capacity building, are going in the same direction. But it's also put in the framework of more general policy objective, like the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement. So, of course, when preparing your proposal, you should you should check also which are the main priorities, which is the political context in which you are pushing and you are preparing your proposal, and in which your proposal should be englobated. There are also other keywords that I would like to underline in this presentation, and it's equity, accessibility, inclusion, capacity building, of course, and also employability. Employability, it's really very important. We think that the higher education institution should also work in this direction, also with other eligible organizations, but the focus in this new program is really to focus also on employability, and this is true across transversally across the action. So in all the strengths, in all the type of project, employability is a big priority as well. And there should be also global intervention that take into account governance, management, and the strengthening of higher education wider in economic and social ecosystem. And of course, as the projects are divided also on region, and the distribution on region, it's also quite important from different point of view, from the eligibility, but also the type of funding, the type of priorities. It's really very important that your proposal that you are preparing are addressing regional issues, if it's a project, it's regional, and to build alliances and coalitions, and they bring a new initiative and approaches, but everything should be based on the country ownership and then on the higher education institutions that are involved ownership. We see during the presentation or during the evaluation of the proposal that sometimes these proposals are really not really done with the help and with the support of the country, of the higher education institution of the third countries, but they are model, perhaps very valid for other regions that are transferred to this country. This is not what we want. What we want is really that you analyze the needs of the country and of each institution and organization who is participating to the project, or to the proposal when you're preparing it. The objective of capacity building are the modernization of higher education institution and higher education system, the impact on the society, the accessibility, the innovation, the governance, and as I already mentioned, the cooperation and the regional integration. We have different regions that are eligible. I see now that perhaps it's not very visible, but you will see it more in details, all the countries in the published PowerPoint and also in the program guide, of course. As you can see, we are working with a variety of regions that are going from Western Balkans, the neighborhood East, South Mediterranean countries, Asia region, Central Asia, Middle East, Pacific, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Caribbean. But please check carefully the countries that are involved, because as I mentioned, the high-income countries are not eligible for capacity building in higher education. So you have really to check which are the countries that are eligible, and this will be visible not only on our website, but of course in the program guide. That is the best sources for the preparation of your proposal, considering that it is our legal basis. So that's it. These are the regions involved. Please also, when you are preparing your proposal, check that the overarching priorities that you have to fulfill that are related to the region for which you are preparing the proposal, because we have 5 overarching priorities, but not all of them are valid for all the regions. But what are the type of support that we offer in capacity building in higher education? We have 3 strands. We have, as I mentioned, regional priorities that are overarching and sub-priorities for some of the region. We have a new budget system, new in comparison with the past, of course, that it's called the lump sum 2. But for the one of you that are completely newcomers, this it's not new, but it's new in comparison with the past programs that we had. And we have also a new publication system. So everything is published on this funding and tender opportunities portal. All the links will be provided afterwards, and also we will show you how to submit an application in the portal. As I have already mentioned a little bit, we have in capacity building in higher education 5 overarching priorities. And the first one is Green Deal. Then we have digital transformation, migration and mobility, governance, peace, security and human development, sustainable growth and jobs. As I mentioned, as you can see, these overarching priorities are fully aligned with the European policy priorities as well. But as I mentioned, I mean, there is behind also a policy dialogue with the countries that and the regions that are concerned. And this means that also in accordance with the budget that is available for each region, not all the overarching priorities are valid for each region. So when you're preparing your proposal, the first thing will be to check if your idea is matching with not only with one of the overarching priorities, but also with one of the overarching priorities of the regions for which you will like to apply. The overarching priorities and this distribution will be available very soon, we hope already next week at the latest, in the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. And as I mentioned, we have three strands. The first one is strand 1, is fostering access to cooperation in higher education. And this is really targeted to newcomer and least experience. So I think that the one of you that are completely newcomer or they have only participated once or 2 times as a partner with less experience, so in managing EU funding and in particular in managing capacity building in higher education project, this is really the strand for which you need to apply. And this is why also the project lasts a little bit less than for the others, because they can last from 24 to 36 months, and the funding is smaller because it's from 200,000 from 200,000 to 400,000 per project. Because of course the idea behind is that a newcomer with less experience, for them it will be easier to find a relatively smaller project in terms at least of funding. Then we have partnership for transformation, and these are the old, behind this, there are the old type of projects that were selected in the past, but this keyword is really transformation, and in this case, the duration is the same, but you can have the funding between 400,000 and 800,000, and then we have a structural reform project in which what is really very important is the involvement of the Ministry of Higher Education, and this is mandatory. But the project can last until 48 months, and you can you can apply for a budget of even for 1 million. And under this strand 3 in the new call and this new program guide, this is also a new funding opportunity for Ukraine. In this, we have 3 types of project: the national project, the multi-country regional project, and the multi-country cross-regional project. In which, I mean, in the national project, you have to target only one third country not associated in the Erasmus Plus program. In the multi-country regional project, you can target several countries from one region, and in the cross-regional, you can target higher education institutions from countries not associated to the Erasmus Plus program, belonging to several regions. The advice is really to check, because the eligibility criteria might be different from one type of project to the other, so you really need to check for the region for which you are applying, or if it's national or multi-country or cross-regional project, you should really check carefully the program guide in order not to fail, I mean, for the eligibility criteria. In strand 1, we are targeting newcomers and less experienced higher education institution, and it's really it's the first step for participating organization to enhance and increase the means to reach out to people with fewer opportunities, and to reduce the internationalization gap of the higher education institution, and also to foster in the social inclusion. As I mentioned here, the target are really higher education institutions from least developed countries, located in remote areas, newcomer or least experienced, and individuals with fewer opportunities that should be included in the cooperation agreement with, the cooperation among the universities involved. Then we have innovation, the partnership for transformation. These are really in line with the past that we had, but the focus are on transformation in an innovation, modernizing, and so it's really should be something innovative for all the, in particular for the third countries, higher education and organization involved. You should really bring something very innovative and different from the past that target and focus some of the needs, main fundamental needs of the countries and the higher educations that are involved. And then we have strand 3 with the structural reform project, and this that in the impact should be at system level, and it's really very important that you focus on the system, and that is why also the involvement of the ministry is mandatory, because without the Ministry of Higher Education, you cannot have an impact on the system. Who can apply? Higher education institution or organization of higher education institution. Applicant must be established in a EU member state or third country associated to the Erasmus Plus program, or in an eligible third country not associated to the Erasmus Plus program. And of course, the applicants applies on behalf of all participating organizations. Then, as partner, you can have also association, public or private organization, active in the labor market or in the fields of the education and training and so on. Please check the program guide, because during the first selection of this programming period, we had problems with eligibility, so it's really very important that you check the exception, the specificities of the region, because unfortunately last year we had a lot of ineligible proposals. The lump sum should be detailed on the estimation of the cost. It's a new approach. In one of the next presentations, we will go more in details on that. And this is the budget that has been presented per region in the last call. The new budget will be presented very soon and will be published in the top already. But I decided to present in any case this budget table in order to give you an idea. These are per strand and per region, the budget that were available last year, and the tendency will be similar. But of course, Russia Federation that was eligible in the past, from this year, they are not eligible anymore. The award criteria are relevance, quality of project design and implementation, quality of partnership cooperation arrangement, and sustainability, impact, and in dissemination of the expected results. It is very important that you focus on all the award criteria, because the proposal must score at least 60 points under 100, but at least half of the maximum points should be reached in each award criteria. Award criterion. So it's really very important that you don't underestimate some of the criteria just to focus on the other one. And in case of ex aequo, that might happen, the priority will be given to the proposal scoring highest under relevance and sustainability, impact, and dissemination. So this I would like to give the idea that this criteria is really very important for you. What is a competitive application? It should be coherent, concrete, clear, using a simple language, explicit, rigorous, focused, and complete. Sometimes these keywords seem to be obvious, but when we read the application, it's not always the case. So really, we really invite you to have a look and to read carefully all the documentation that is provided. There is a lot of documentation available, not only in the top, but also, you can find a previous project on the different websites. and how to submit the proposal, as I mentioned several times, to this funding and tender opportunities portal. The deadline is also in our case the 16th of February 2023, but please don't wait until the end because of course it's always better to be in advance and not to risk the technical problem prevent you to apply at the end. It's really very important. So you will have a lot of info days that we are preparing in which you will receive a lot of details. And of course, our functional mailbox, it's always there. So if you have a question or that you cannot understand because it's not very clear or etc. We will not enter into, will not help individual application, but we can clarify questions and problems that are not clear for you. This was the results of the 2022 call for proposal, but of course, so to encourage you to see what will happen in the next future if you are selected. And as I mentioned, we have several Erasmus Plus promotion activities, some together with other colleagues. We will have next week a regional one focusing on Latin American and Caribbean, and then to Sub-Saharan Africa. And the general capacity building in higher education in Info Day will be on the 9th of December 2022. So you have still several opportunities to know more about capacity building. So I thank you for your attention. These are the link where you can find the information, but you know already our website, so please go ahead and see what is available, also for the other action. I thank you, and we will now continue with the next presentation. Of course, if you have questions, please write to the functional mailbox, and we will try to answer today or in the next days in written. So thank you, bye. And now, after my presentation, we will continue with Mr. Paweł Kępański, my colleague. He will present always capacity building, but this time in the field of vocational education and training. Please, Paweł.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. I think this one, no. Okay, this one. So thank you very much, Jordana. So good morning or good afternoon. It depends in which part of the world you are. Similarly to my colleagues, I also work for the European Education and Culture Executive Agency. My name is Paweł Kępański, and I will speak about similar action as my colleague Jordana, but this time the capacity building will be focused on the field of vocational education and training, as similarly to the capacity building higher education. It will be focused on countries, to make it very simple, outside Europe. I will be more precise in the presentation. I can imagine you will receive many information today, also in my PowerPoint presentation. There are a lot of details, but it will be useful if you remember that for this action, I will use the abbreviation CBVET, as you can see. Important are, from the project point of view, three information. The project can last 1, 2, or 3 years. The grant that you can receive if you are selected, it is at least 100,000 euro, and the maximum is 400,000 euro. And the deadline for submission and application, the project, is 28th of February. So of course now I think it's time to go more into details. What do we mean, or what I mean by capacity building in VET? Already my colleagues, they spoke about 3 groups of countries, and these 3 groups of countries, they can be involved also in CBVET projects. They are, on one hand, EU member states, European Union member states, third countries associated to the program, and third countries not associated to the program. Later on, you will see what we mean by third countries not associated to the program. Countries and organizations coming from these three groups of countries, all of them, they should have one aim. They should try to improve the VET system and improve capacity of VET providers in the countries not associated to the program. And improve, we can say also, or use other words, it means they should strengthen the relevance, accessibility, and responsiveness of VET systems in the countries, third countries not associated to the program. Objectives that you can see on the slides, these are objectives of the whole action, but for sure the evaluators, external evaluators that we use for evaluation of your projects or application, they are also willing to see at least one of these objectives in your project. So the first one, as the title already said, your project could try to improve the capacity of VET providers, mainly when cooperating with the private sector. Another objective could be to improve the quality assurance and quality responsiveness of the VET system to the labor market. And last but not least, it is important if you can focus your project also on needs and strategies at the local, regional, and national level. So to put and to reflect in VET systems and to reflect by the VET providers what are the needs and what are the development strategies on different levels. Once you have the objective of your project, there is a need to focus your project on at least one thematic areas. You can see the thematic areas, there are quite many. What is important, you need to choose at least one. You can choose more, but it doesn't matter if you choose more thematic areas, you have a better chances to be selected. No, the quality of the project is not depending only on thematic area. In addition, maybe you see in one of the box 3 dots, so it means except these defined thematic areas, you can choose one additional thematic area that is important, that reflects the needs of the VET systems, but it must be in line with objectives of the whole action. So now you know the objective of your project, thematic area, and you need to achieve these objectives and thematic area by some activities. Here on the slide you can see some examples, what we mean, what we expect in your project to be seen. It could be creating a network of VET providers from different countries, or simply to improve capacity of institutions by developing and creating materials. Creating also mechanism how the VET providers can cooperate with private sector and to involve them, for example, in development of curricula, or by offering work-based learning in companies. Then another activity could be you will develop different training materials that are focusing on, for example, using ICT tools, and use this in general, use the ICT potential in the VET systems. Last but not least, there could be also exchange and mobility activities. We speak about on the one hand students, but also about the teachers, trainers, and managers. As said also by my colleagues, there are 3 groups of countries. Here they are again, but also with some figures. So the organizations involved in CBVET projects can come from 27 countries, members of the European Union, or 6 countries from the group called third countries associated to the program, or we have 102 countries that could participate from all over the world in the CBVET actions. Later on, I will show you which regions of the third countries not associated to the program I have in mind. You see the figure 27 million euro. This amount is for your projects. For all selected projects, we can commit this amount. And as I said already a few seconds ago, here are the regions of the third countries not associated to the program. I know you see only the title of the region. If you wish to see the countries that belong to the region, you need to go to the program guide. What is important to say from the financial point of view, I already mentioned for all selected projects we have approximately 27 million euro. But for each regions that you can see, there are 6 regions, there is a specific budget dedicated to projects coming from this region. And the regional budget will be published in a few days in the Funding and Tender Opportunity portal. But if we make a reference to the last year call, some regions can get 300,000 euro and other regions 8 million euro. So please check, because this also indicates a little bit the chances for your project. There are not only regional budgets, of course, there are also regional priorities, similarly to CB higher education. In general, we encourage you to cooperate with poorest and least developed countries, no matter from which countries your partners or applicant will come from. But in general, this is a general encouragement. In addition, each region has specific priorities. Western Balkan, as you can see, if you prepare projects involving Western Balkans, it's important to reflect the so-called Torino process managed by the European Training Foundation. It's a process that analyzes the VET systems every second year from 2010. And the European Training Foundation publishes different reports. You need to take into account when preparing their project this Torino process. Mobility is important also for Western Balkan. Neighborhood East region and South Mediterranean countries, as you can see, priority will be given to projects that reflect economic and investment plan and Torino process. For other 3 regions, again, general encouragement to work with poorest and least developed third countries. What we mean concretely, you will find in the program guide. They are listed which countries we mean by this expression. For Sub-Saharan Africa, again, we encourage you to cooperate with least developed countries, but also with migration priority countries. Everything is in the program guide. For Latin America and Caribbean, it's quite useful, or a priority will be given to projects that involve organizations from more than one country. So these are the regional projects. And of course, don't forget also to take into account so-called multi-annual indicative program for all these 3 regions. You will find the links in the program guide. Except these specific priorities, there are general horizontal aspects, some kind of important areas, valid for all actions of the Erasmus Plus program guide. It's inclusion, diversity, environmental sustainability, digital dimension, and common values like democracy, unity, diversity. If you can, it's optional to focus your project on one of these or more of this theme. It's optional, but we highly encourage you to do it. Already my colleagues told you what kind of role can have an organization. There could be an applicant, also coordinator, that will submit the project on behalf of the consortium. And in the consortium, you can have full partners, affiliated entity, and associated partners. Full partners, they do the main job. They contribute mainly to the accomplishment of the project. And affiliated entities, they have some either financial or capital link or legal link to full partners or coordinator, and they also contribute to the project. Associated partners, they mainly potential is when you speak about dissemination and sustainability of the project. Please be aware, affiliated entities and associated partners are not counted when we speak about the minimum number of partners and organizations and countries. I will show you later on the next slide. Here, this slide is very important because in the first call that finished on 31st of March 2020, we received 121 applications, and some of them are quite many, as it was new action. They were not eligible. So therefore, applicant and coordinator that will submit the application on behalf of the whole consortium can come only from 33 countries, 27 EU member states, or 6 countries from the group, third countries associated with the program. The other positions in the project, full partner, affiliated entity, and associated partners, can have organizations from EU member states, third countries associated to the program, third countries not associated to the program. Here I'm not going into details because this table is quite complex. We prepare it in order to make it easier for you. What I can say, in each project, you need to have at least 4 organizations from 3 countries. But of course, please pay attention what I mean if I say 4 organizations, because you have 3 scenarios or 3 alternatives how to understand this. I would like to underline that what you see, it is a minimum requirement. Of course, you can and we will be happy if you have even more partners. It's even important to say that if you count all organizations involved in the project, the organizations coming from EU member states and third countries associated to the program, the number of these organizations cannot be higher than the number of organizations coming from third countries not associated to the program. So please pay attention to this. And as said, affiliated entities and associated partners are not counted, we can say, in this table. Who can participate? Logically, as you can expect, vocational education training providers at different levels, but we try to put also other type of organizations in the program guide, so you can see they could be companies, employment services, research institutes, etc. Please, the list that you will see in the program guide is not exhaustive. We didn't put all the types. Important is, if you wish to participate in the project, you must be active in the field of vocational education training or in the labor market. And here, attention, because there were some problems in the last call. Again, applicant coordinator cannot be from the third country not associated to the program. What is new? This is new requirement, new eligibility criteria. The consortium must include at least 1 VET provider at non-tertiary education level, for example, secondary vocational school. Here there is a summary. I spoke already about duration, about the budget. I spoke also. The EU grant can cover maximum 80% of your costs. Deadline unmentioned and bodies ahead of you. Imagine you will submit your application until end of February. In August, you can expect we will inform you if your project was successful or not. And if yes, until November, we will sign a contract. In December next year, you can start to implement your project. Financial mechanism will be implemented by my colleague, but I wish to underline the lump sums that is used for CBVET. Please don't try to find for CBVET, for this action, some kind of tables where it will be written how much I should put for a seminar, event, or staff cost. There is no such a table. You put your actual costs. This slide summarizes the results of the first call. I mean, first call, it means we received the first applications until end of March this year. We received 121, and 58, I cannot say they were selected, but they reached the threshold, say they got at least 60 points out of 100. In January, they will be published, the project that with them we sign a contract, they will be published in the funding and then the opportunity portal. And and now the last 3 slides, if you are newcomer, but also if you are not newcomer, and you say, yes, this is interesting action, I would like to see the application form. It was published a few minutes ago. You can go to EFTOP portal, the PPT will be available, there is a hyperlink. You can see the application form, I put the arrow, you can see how it looks like, that you have an idea. And some recommendations for newcomers. Firstly, read the program guide and speak with your management of the organization if this is interesting for you or not, if you are capable to be involved. If yes, then please participate in our info session that we will organize 7 of December. As said, organizations coming from third countries not associated with the program, they cannot submit a project, they cannot be coordinator. In this case, they need to find a coordinator in EU member states or third countries associated. There is a hyperlink on the slide. We try to put some advice how to find a coordinator. Next advice, please don't wait. If you think it's interesting, please try to develop your network, approach your organization that you already know, and start to prepare the project. As already said, one of the ways how to learn from others is you will see the approved or selected project. In funding and tender portal, you will see it in January. You will see the titles and short summary. If you have questions, please don't waste time. Send us an email. Help desk is on the slide. And this is already, it's a common slide, but it's useful. I think this, what you can see, these are some recommendations to be successful, not only for this action, but I think for all projects in the Erasmus Plus program. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Pavel, for this interesting presentation. As you know, I mean, as you have seen, there are similarities, but also several differences among the action that we are presenting to you. Now we will continue always with, with another action that it's virtual exchanges on higher education and youth, and Mr. Roland Farkas will present this initiative. I think that
Yes, good morning. Welcome to participants from around the world. Thank you very much for this introduction, and I'm very happy to be here with this focus, especially on higher education institutions. As you see from the call, it's a call called Virtual Exchanges in Higher Education and Youth. This is actually the third round for this call. I will come back with more details also on the past and the background of the previous two calls later on. So let me start about virtual exchanges of what is actually a virtual exchange. The virtual exchanges are online people-to-people activities that promote intercultural dialogue and soft skills development. And they basically make it possible for every young person to access high-quality international and cross-cultural education. Actually, both we can talk about formal and non-formal education without physical mobility. They normally take place in small groups and are always moderated by a trained facilitator. This you will have to also already take into account in the application form and mention actually how many facilitators you have for your virtual exchanges. And normally also they should be easily integrated in youth, which are of course, well, non-formal education projects or higher education courses. I will always keep in mind, of course, these two sectors because you can involve participants from either only one of the sectors, so it could be higher education, or from both of the sectors. This is completely up to the applicant to choose from. And what is very important, that participant organizations must arrange virtual exchanges for people in the 13 to 30 age range. So after this general introduction, let me move to the specific objectives of the call. There are 6 specific objectives of the call, and again, there is a, we call it a statistical part, part C in the application form, where you will have to choose one of these. And let me go quickly through them. The first one is encourage intercultural dialogue with third countries not associated to the program. By now, I think you are all familiar with this formulation of group of countries. So we talk about EU member states, third countries associated to the program, and third countries not associated to the program. For my presentation, I will refer to it to associated and not associated countries. So the first one is to encourage this intercultural dialogue. The second one is to promote various types of virtual exchanges, basically allowing more young people to benefit from intercultural and international experience. Then the third one is to enhance critical thinking and media literacy. Particularly here we talk about the use of internet and social media. Then fostering the digital and soft skills development of students, young people, or youth workers. And here especially focuses on the practice of foreign languages, teamwork, or for example, enhance employability. The next one is promote citizenship and common values of freedom, tolerance, and non-discrimination through education. And lastly, strengthening the youth dimension in the relations of the EU with third countries. Then moving to the activities and expected outcomes. Well, a wide variety of activities and topics are possible, of course, but all projects, this is important, are expected to have a learning dimension, and you will have to also report on it, actually. The next 5 activities are formulated in the program guide, and actually, again, here you will have the possibility to choose in the part C of the application form, where you choose one or the other activity. And these are online facilitated discussions, either as part of youth projects, as mentioned before, or as part of higher education courses. The third one would be the training of youth workers for virtual exchanges, or the training for university professor staff for virtual exchange activities. And lastly, last activity would be, you can choose from, is an interactive open online course. And here, the focus is on, of course, of community interactions among the participants. Some tips maybe that we would expect that you rely as much as possible on existing tools and platforms. Also, you should foresee a method of recognition of participation in virtual exchanges. And what is very important, that participants actually must be based in the countries of the participating organizations. So all the participants must come from those countries. Then the next one gives you an overview about the timetable. As mentioned also from my previous colleagues, the program guide will be published or is published already in the Funding and Tendering Opportunities portal. For virtual exchanges, you here see the call ID, and the deadline will be the 26th of April, 2023, 5 o'clock Brussels time. Of course, here already when you see the deadline, I already would like to remind you not to leave, and this is one of the tips I think for all the calls we can give, not to leave the submission of the application to the last day. Probably the best is if you put the deadline for you the day before. And that's the typical actually timetable schedule which you have for the virtual exchanges call, which is a 9 months of period. The first 6 months are dedicated to the evaluation process. So in this case, it would be between May and October. We will inform the applicants around the end of October next year. And then we have a 3 months period where we have the grants agreements signed. And the start of the project is foreseen, in this case, for the 1st of February in 2024, actually. The duration of virtual exchanges projects is 3 years, so the project should last 36 months. Then moving to the budget. Here, also for the virtual exchanges call, we talk about a lump sum based budget with the maximum EU grant per project for 500,000 euros, with the maximum EU co-financing of 95%. For this year, the budget available is 6.3 million euros, and you also see some eligibility of costs below. Actually, there is a dedicated section in the program guide of eligible direct costs, but for the virtual exchanges call, let me just highlight that financial support to third parties is not allowed, and volunteers and SME costs are allowed under this cost to include in the budget. Then when it comes to the role of participating organizations, many of you are already aware of these terms. So we have the coordinator, the full partners, and the associated partners. Well, the coordinator is the one who submits the project proposals on behalf of all the partners, and the full partners are the ones which are actively contributing to the activities of virtual exchanges, and they are also the ones who are the beneficiaries and are included in the financial table. The difference with associated partners is that they are contributing to the activities in most cases when it comes to dissemination or promotion activities, but for contractual management reasons, they are not considered to be beneficiaries, and also they do not receive any funding, and therefore they are not included in the financial budget table. When it comes to the regions, the eligible regions that can participate, also for this call is the case that coordinator, so the main organization applying on behalf of the partner organizations, so the coordinator must come from an EU member state or an associated country. And you might remember also for capacity building in VET that this was the case. So it's EU member states and the 6 associated countries, Iceland, Norway, Liechtenstein, North Macedonia, Serbia, and Turkey. And we have 4 eligible regions: Western Balkans, Neighborhood East, South Mediterranean countries, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And here, let me just to highlight one of the very important eligibility criteria, that actually the organizations and participants for one project must come from one of the eligible regions. So cross-regional projects are not eligible under this call. And the list actually of the countries of these regions you can find in the call text, which is the program guide, as mentioned before. Maybe just to add for Sub-Saharan Africa that there is a geographical target priority formulated in the program guide to have priority to least developed countries and special emphasis on migration priority countries in this region. Then to come to the coordinator, who can be a coordinator? One important aspect, as I mentioned, that they must be established in an EU member states or associated countries, and the coordinators must be a public or private organizations active in the field of higher education or youth, or it could be a higher education institutions, associations, organizations of higher education institutions, as well as legally recognized national or international rector, teacher, or student organizations. When it comes to the participating organizations, again here, let me highlight that organizations and participants must focus or must come from one of the eligible regions, and they may fall under different categories, especially also linked to what was said for the coordinator. So main focus is, of course, as I mentioned, on youth organizations and higher education institutions. So these are the main categories, and you see in the program guide also some other categories mentioned, but always linked, of course, to the education system. Other entities, as I mentioned, for associated partners can participate, and one important difference maybe to some other calls, that affiliated entities are not eligible for funding under the virtual exchanges call. And let me highlight this eligibility, basically the partnership composition, because I think this is also something which you will have to give a lot of attention when forming your consortium. And also when it comes to the, as I mentioned, this is the 3rd call under this topic, virtual exchanges in higher education and youth. And there were, in the past, for the last 2 calls, also some eligibility issues. So I really highlight that you give specific attention to this slide and to the different eligibility criteria. And there are, let's say, mainly threefold what you can mention as eligibility criteria. The first one is that you have to have at least 4 organizations, 4 partners participating in the consortium. Then the second would be the minimum number of organizations, which you will have actually from 2 categories. So from 2 group of countries, you will have a minimum of 2 organizations participating, and they have to be minimum 2 higher education institutions or youth organizations, and they must come from, well, in the first category, from 2 countries from an EU member states or associated country, and you will have also the other group of countries which are the non-associated countries, as I mentioned, the 4 eligible regions. and they must be a minimum 2 higher education institutions or youth organizations from 2 of those countries coming from these regions I mentioned. And the third important criteria would be that actually the number of organizations from EU member states and associated countries cannot be higher than the number of organizations from third countries not associated to the program. So for example, if you have a project with a partner from Spain and Turkey, and this is number of the minimum is 2, and you will also have maybe a third one to give the example. So you will have Spain, Italy, and Turkey on one side, and you will have only 2 organizations from not associated countries. So for example, you would have a project from Sub-Saharan Africa with from 2 countries. This would not be eligible because it would be 3 organizations from the first category and 2 from, let's say, outside, not associated countries, and this would be a not eligible project. So I really highlight this point to give attention when you compose your consortium. And lastly, some information maybe to when you make the application to come back one of these information sites, in addition to of course, to the publication of the presentation, which you can also revisit, and also the recording. There is on the Erasmus Plus website, there is a dedicated page on virtual exchanges in higher education and youth. We had an online info session actually on the previous call in June, which you can revisit, but we will also publish a new news item on the new call this year. Here you also have the link to a leaflet which we produced for the EVE 2022 call, and we are now working on a new leaflet which will be published very soon in English and French. And you have the link to the program guide for this year, and you will also have the publication submission portal where you can actually send the publication and have more information. So thank you very much. As I understood, we will have time for questions later on. Here you will also see on the slide the functional mailbox where you can send also questions, or if you would like to have more information. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland. Very interesting. And so we continue with this variety of activities and actions, and in which you can apply. Next will be Mrs. Ilenia Destito, and she will present the Jean Monnet actions. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And good morning, and welcome also from my side. Last but not least, Jean Monnet. The Jean Monnet actions represent a standalone initiatives within the Erasmus Plus program. I'll go directly to the indicative roadmap because in a few days we plan to publish our next course, 23. It's a matter of days. Yesterday we published on the Funding and Tender Opportunity portals the pre-information about the calls. And then, so I don't know the exact date of the publication of the course, but as I said, it will be in a few days. But we already have the deadline for submission, which is 14th of February 23, or as my colleague Roland said, maybe for you 13th of February 23, so we are sure you submit on time. We plan to notify the results to applicants before summer, July, August 23, and then we are gonna start preparing the grant agreement in September 23. So I wanted to start from this information because, as I said, we are going to publish the calls. For 23, the budget available for Jean Monnet actions is about 26 million, euros, and this amount is spread in the following way. For higher education institutes, teaching activities, module chairs, and center of excellence, 13.8 million. In other fields of education and training, which is composed of two goals, teacher training and learning EU initiatives, we have 7 million, with the caveat that these two goals will be only for EU member states and third countries associated to the programs. And finally, for policy debate, meaning a network for higher education institutes from around the world, and network for schools and VETs from EU and countries associated to the programs, we have 5.4 million. As you can see already from this slide, the eligibility criteria for the different Jean Monnet actions are very different, but I'm going to present you more details in a second. Of course, all information are in the program guide, so as my colleagues, I invite you to carefully check the program guide. So this is for you to have an overview on the spread of Jean Monnet actions in the world since 1989. So as you can see in the map, all countries in red have been touched or have been beneficiaries of Jean Monnet actions. We have around 6,500 Jean Monnet actions in the field of European studies. So here is my turn to tell you that why those actions are called after Jean Monnet, which was, of course, one of the founding fathers of the European Union, because those actions focus on EU studies. So through Jean Monnet, we want to spread the information about what the EU means, which are the EU policies, and how citizens can benefit from EU policies. Then a few figures. Around 100 countries worldwide have been beneficiaries of Jean Monnet actions, and more than 1,000 universities worldwide have been offering Jean Monnet courses. And we have average 9,000 university professors per year who are delivering Jean Monnet actions. So you can see the spread of Jean Monnet in the world. But how many Jean Monnet actions do exist? With different colors, I hope this is going to be quite clear. In green, I put the Jean Monnet actions in the field of higher education. Those are activities where higher education institutes from across the world can participate. Then we have in orange Jean Monnet actions in other fields of education and training. The beneficiaries are mainly teachers and students from primary and secondary schools, and those actions are only for EU member states and third countries associated to the programs. And finally, Jean Monnet policy debate in purple, where we have 3 thematic networks in higher education that I will explain in a while, and thematic networks in other fields of education and training. So I think that for this audience today is going to be particularly important to have more information about Jean Monnet action in the field of higher education, because these actions are for higher education institutes across the world. Which are the objectives? The objectives are to promote excellence in teaching and research in EU studies worldwide. I underlined the expression EU studies because in order to be relevant to a Jean Monnet call, the proposal has to be in line with this very important condition, has to focus on EU studies, otherwise the proposal would risk not to be selected. Another objective is to generate knowledge and insight in support of EU policy making and strengthen the role of the EU within Europe and outside Europe in the world. Then we also want to reach out to a wider public, so beyond academia and specialized audiences of universities or higher education institutes, by bringing EU knowledge closer to society, being citizens, organizations like NGOs, but also policymakers. And finally, when Jean Monnet actions are implemented outside the EU, those function as a vector for public diplomacy towards our partner or the third countries. So let me focus a little bit on the definition of European Union studies. By the way, the definition is inserted in the Erasmus Plus program, so you can easily find it. By EU studies, we mean the study of Europe in its entirety. We mean the study of Europe with a special focus, of course, on the EU, how it works, how it functions, and which are the EU policies. And when Jean Monnet actions are implemented outside the EU, of course, as I said, Jean Monnet works as a vector of public diplomacy by promoting the EU values outside the European continent or the EU. What we wanted to achieve by focusing on EU studies is having Jean Monnet activities which could spread the knowledge about the European policies and show how citizens can benefit in their everyday life by those policies. So a very clear link between the subject of the proposal and the EU studies has to be displayed. Otherwise, as I said, the proposal might not be selected. This is very important because sometimes we receive proposals who focus on certain European matters which are not really related to the EU. But, for example, we receive proposals who want to exchange practices on something which is inherent to the European continent, but doesn't focus on EU policies. So I will go a bit more into details through this kind of dense slide in order to display which are the different topics of the Jean Monnet call in the field of higher education. We are going to have 3 topics: modules, chairs, and center of excellence. Modules are the easiest, let's say, Jean Monnet action in a higher education field, because those are small grant up to 30,000 euros, lasting 36 months. By the way, all Jean Monnet actions last 3 years, so it's easy, 36 months for all of them. And when we have modules, we think about module of minimum teaching, 40 teaching hours per year, per academic year, which must be implemented at the applicant higher education institute. I won't go into many details, otherwise I will run out of time. The second action within Jean Monnet in the field of higher education are chairs. Those are more structured grant where the maximum EU grant amount is 50,000 euros. Here we have the condition of teaching a minimum 90 teaching hours per academic year by the so-called chair-holder, which is the professor who is going to be elected as a person who is going to implement the chair. And then finally we have centers of excellence, which are more complex Jean Monnet action, meaning that Center of Excellence is a more structured interdisciplinary center within a higher education institute, which wanted to focus on EU policies, trying also to bring EU policies closer to those students who won't normally be exposed to EU policies, for example, students of scientific faculties. Then we have different calls for member states and third countries associated to the programs in the field of education and training for primary and secondary schools. So for the sake of time, I will not go too much into details, but you will have my presentation, because I think that among you, the majority will be from third countries not associated to the programs. So finally, I wanted to focus on Jean Monnet policy debate, which are large thematic networks in higher education, whose aim is collect, sharing, and discussing among the partners of those large networks, research findings, content of courses and experiences, and the role of the coordinator of those large thematic network will be quite active, because we expect the coordinators sharing with us the most innovative and interesting results from time to time. For the course 23, we have 3 thematic networks. The first one is the network on internal EU issues on the topic digital transformation in Europe. But this is only for EU member states or third countries associated to the program. We are going to finance only one network on this topic. As you can see, the composition is quite challenging, minimum at least 12 higher education institutes from the EU or third countries associated to the program. More interesting might be for you the second network on values and democracy, so on external policy issues. So we are going to finance one network on such a topic. Maximum EU contribution is 1.2 million. And here the composition consists of at least 12 higher education institutes from any country in the world, with the exception of the Russian Federation and Belarus, out of which at least 6 participants from different third countries not associated to the program. The third and last policy debate or network on external policy issues is on the theme EU-Africa. Here again, we are going to finance one thematic network on such a topic for a maximum EU contribution of 1.2 million. And here I have to explain that the coordinator has to be established in a EU member state or third country associated to the program. But in the consortium, we envisage the participation also of third countries which are not associated to the programs. I have to correct myself. Actually, those countries have to participate. This is a condition for the eligibility of the proposal. So, and in particular, those countries have to belong to the program region sub-Saharan African countries, in particular Algeria, and also Algeria, Egypt, Libya, Morocco, and Tunisia. So region 9 and 3. And finally, we have networks in other fields of education and training. But here again, the participation is only possible to institutes coming from EU member states and third countries associated to the program. So I won't go into details. Everything is written in the program guide, of course. For Jean Monnet, as for the other programs, for the other Erasmus Plus program, we have award criteria. As you can see, they are relevance of the project, quality of the project design and implementation, quality of partnership and cooperation arrangement, and impact, dissemination, and sustainability. Those award criteria are the same across the different Jean Monnet actions. Of course, there are differences between them. But to be considered for funding, proposal must score at least 70 out of 100 points. And per each award criteria, we need at least 25 points. Finally, let me highlight that depending on the Jean Monnet actions, we have a different funding mechanism. For certain modules and learning EU initiatives, we're going to use fixed lump sums, and for the others, Center of Excellence, teacher training and networks, we will have customized lump sums, and you will have all the information in the program guide. By the way, that there are the main differences are displayed in this slide. So basically, for the first typology, we have a calculator. You have to fill in a calculator, which is a sort of simple file Excel in which you should insert two factors, two variables, your country and the teaching hours, and then the budget of the proposal will be displayed automatically. While for the second typology, we still have a simplified budget, but applicants are requested to detail their work programs in work packages and to insert an estimation of the cost. I have some tips that are similar to the ones of my colleagues, so I will leave you reading them if you're interested. And in my last slide, I put some useful links, and at the end, the Jean Monnet functional mailbox, where you are invited to send requests for clarifications. I will be happy, together with my colleagues of the Jean Monnet team, of replying to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ilenia, for this interesting presentation. With this presentation, we have finished the presentation on the contents and on the different actions. I would like to answer also one of the questions that arrived to our functional mailbox about the decentralized actions. Newcomers are welcome in all the actions in Erasmus Plus. So please, if you intend and you have ideas, please apply and try to be selected, because it's all the newcomers are welcome. Just for organizational reason, today we could not present the international mobility, but you will see a link that we will be publishing in the website of the event of today. So that's it. But in addition, I would like to inform you that also the national agencies that are nominated in the different countries that are in the EU member states, but also in the countries associated to the program, are organizing several events and info days. So if you are interested in the cooperation with one of these countries, please go ahead and you will find the information on the national agencies' websites as well. Now, to close this session, we would like to give you some information also on the funding and submission modalities. And my colleague Laura Tudor will continue and will present this topic. Sorry, you can start. I can start.
Good morning, everybody. Until my colleague finds the presentation to put it to display, welcome to this session. My name is Laura Tudor. I am a project advisor in the Capacity Building for Higher Education unit, and I will try to give you an overview on how to submit your proposal and some hints about the lump sum type 2 financing modalities. So, my colleagues already talked about the funding and the tender opportunity portal. So this is an integrated system used by many of the European Union programs. You can find there how to apply and to become an external evaluators of the European programs. You can access the call that you are interested in as soon as it is published on that portal. And you can find the direct link to your interested call by introducing the ID. So in the meantime, my colleague will also display the presentation, so I don't speak on.
Perfect, you are on the.
Now we are on track. The way we see it. So this would be the topic. So how to submit a proposal or how to apply? Where? I already mentioned the European Commission Funding and Tender Opportunities portal, using the portal submission system. I said already that this is an integrated system used by the European Union programs. You can find the call you are interested by, and I gave some examples here. You type the call you are interested in, or you just navigate through. You will see later on. Who can apply for a proposal? A proposal must be created and submitted by a contact person of the coordinating organization. When you have a deadline So you will have to do it by the deadline mentioned in the respective code. And I gave here an example, and my colleagues already mentioned their deadlines, like 16th of February. Of course, a recommendation is to try to do it before, so the system is not blocked when all the people go there. Preliminary steps that we recommend you to follow will be to consult how to find and apply for funding opportunities presentation. In this presentation you will receive later on from my colleagues, there are the links, so you can access directly to these materials. You can get more guidance on how the funding and tender opportunity portal works on the online manual and in the user guide of the system, submission system. So the online manual is the user guide that aims to explain the applicants and beneficiary how the EU grants and procurement work and how to manage them electronically in the funding and portal, funding and tenders opportunity portal. What we also recommend is to read carefully the information on the roles and the access rights and decide the person who will manage the application. This is important because later on you will be contacted, the person that is put there will be contacted by our services. So get prepared for the application by reading carefully all the call documents. All my colleagues mentioned Erasmus Plus program guide for 2023 course, which has been published recently. Read the application templates and specific instruction published in the funding and tender portal. Erasmus Plus program guide provides objective eligibility award criteria. You can find there more, and my colleagues already mentioned each of them for their specific goals. Plan your project and define your work plan, the work packages, the milestones, the deliverables. Create an EU login account, and in order to be able to submit a proposal, you must register on the portal for an EU login account. And the EU login account is a unique identifier for individuals. All you need to open for a EU login account is the work email address. The EU login verifies your identity and allows recovering your personal settings, history, and access rights in a secure way. EU login is the European Commission's user authentication service. It is the entry gate to sign into the different European Commission services and or other systems using a single email address and password. So after this, you will have to make sure that your organization has a valid participation identification code, so-called PIC. If not, you have to get one via the participant register. And the participant identification code is also a unique identifier for organization this time. So if you want to participate in a call for proposal with a new submission, your organization has to be registered and has to have a 9-digit participant identification code. Please quote this participant identification code in all correspondence with the European Commission. The register contains all the participants of the EU programs. So before creating one, first of all, check for already existing participant identification code. If it is not yet registered, to register you have to provide basic administrative and legal information in addition to the contact details. The declared information will be verified against supporting documents later on, and it is useful to have the relevant documents at hand when you complete the registration to make sure you fill in everything correctly. So for the steps in the portal, funding and tenders portal are for these parts that I just mentioned are the 3 and 4, like showed now. Now that you have registered yourself and the organization, you can start your application. The calls for proposal are listed by funding program. EASEA 4 funding programs are Erasmus+, Creative Europe, the European Solidarity Corps, the Citizen Equality, Rights and Values program. Okay, you can find these on the funding and tender portal homepage, like displayed. Is it? Yes. Okay. Now you can start your application by clicking on the program Erasmus+. This will take you to the program page. You have to scroll down to find call for proposal and click on the view to see which funding opportunities are available. I provided there like an example. You can continue to identify the call you are interested in. Each call shows an opening date and a deadline. You can enter by keywords to search. You can make a choice among the displayed ones or click on the call to find out more about it. Start your application. Of course, you have to read all the information related to the call. This should give you all the information you need in order to apply. If you are ready to apply, after this, you click on the Start Submission. So you can begin your application by entering your PIC, what I mentioned earlier, so this identification code for your organization in the box that you will find there. You will have to enter your organization, you will have to select the roles, either last main contact or the contact person. At least one main contact must be provided. Please indicate the proposal acronym and enter a short summary. This will be displayed further on the general information section of the application form, part A. You will have to add later on a partner if the call requires this to the proposal. So you will have to search for them using their PIC and follow the same steps as before. The application package, depending on the call, might contain several forms, several parts. For example, in the capacity building for higher education, there are 3. Part A, the administrative forms that contains general information about the project, data on the applicant, organization, and contact person. The technical part, the part B, and the annexes that contain the narrative part of the project, the work packages, milestone, deliverables, details, budget tables in an annex to the part B. So, and the part C, again, an administrative form. You will have to tick the boxes related to the proposal, general objective and indicators, depending on the call. So, the part A and part C will be filled in directly in the portal, and the part B has to be prepared in advance and uploaded together with the mandatory annexes, so as a PDF. We recommend you to keep the Word in your files for later on in case you are invited, and might be necessary to do some modification. So, the part A, you will have to use the icon edit 4 to access to the administrative one. It contains the general information. Here you provide the general information about the project, the title, the duration, a short summary, which is maximum 2,000 characters with spaces, so it depends also on the call. And you explain the objective, activities, and so on. In this part, you have to pay attention that to not include in this short summary any confidential information, and to use plain typed text, avoiding formula and other special characters. This will be used later on for communication with the Program Management Committee and other interested parties. So in the second section, you will have the participants, and you will have the list of the participants. They are to be selected by using the pick, and the department involved and the contact person. Then the third section is the budget, where you have to encode the total budget by partner. The application part B, the technical description and annexes, must be prepared in advance, as I mentioned already, using the templates downloaded from the system. There are, two mandatory documents for to be uploaded, the part B and the detailed budget table. Okay, for some of the, already. For some of maybe the other action, you will get more information on this part in specific information day for each of the actions. Okay, Annex 1 part B has the budget overview. Here you have to read the instruction, and in the budget table you will have the beneficiary list, the work packages, estimated cost, proposed budget. The administrative form will be filled in the system, and this provides the information about general objectives, indicators specific to the action, so on. So here are the annexes. And now we are to the point to validate and submit the proposal. So as you can see here, you can edit your draft proposal as many times as you need to complete and correct information. Run a validation of your draft proposal to make sure it meets the requirements and that no information is missing. Errors and warnings will be listed at the end of the form. We recommend you to save all the time when you work. So after submission, you can still edit and update the proposal at any time before the deadline. However, if you change the content, you will need to resubmit for the changes to be reflected. Now, few words about the lump sum. Why using lump sum? So it's a significant simplification potential. So despite all simplification tried until now, funding based on reimbursement of incurred cost remains complex and error prone. Lump sum system removes all obligation on actual cost reporting and financial ex post audit, and it might be represent a major reduction of the administrative burden. It's focusing on performance. So shift the focus from the financial management and checking costs to focusing on the content of the project. As a basic principle, it's a new methodology has been developed to determine the amount of the lump sum of the proposal. In the proposal, applicants must provide a detailed estimation of cost and the split of the lump sum per work packages and per beneficiaries. Evaluators assess cost details during evaluation and make recommendation if needed. Based on this, the lump sum is fixed during grant preparation. So again, the basic principle, lump sum evaluation and grant agreement follow standard approach as much as possible, same evaluation criteria, same pre-financing and payment scheme, reporting periods and technical reporting through focusing on completion of work packages. So one lump sum share is fixed in the grant agreement for each work package. It will be the Annex 2 with the estimated lump sum breakdown. And you have an example how it will look. The work packages, so beneficiary might work simultaneously and or sequentially in different or the same work packages. So the total per work package gives the lump sum. Applicants will divide their project in work packages and reflect this division in the budget attached to the application. Each work package will define the activities, outputs, and the corresponding deliverables. You can have as many as manageable work packages you can. So work package means a major subdivision of the proposed project. Therefore, a single activity is not a work package. A single task is not a work package. A percentage of progress of work is not a work package. A lapse of time is generally not a work package. So horizontal work package, management, dissemination, may be approached differently. How is the proposal assessed? So the declared costs need to be close to actual cost and comply with basic eligibility criteria of actual cost in Article 6 of the Annotated Grant Agreement. Consider the call specifications like co-financing rate, maximum amount of the grant, indirect costs. Ensure justification and alignments to rules for subcontracting and support to third parties. During the evaluation, it may be proposed to remove ineligible costs, like outside eligible period, activities already implemented, eligibility of consortium, financial audit, etc., or inflated costs. Now, you will find here some useful links. So after you receive the presentation, you can access, and I'd like to thank you for your attention. And here is the contact address and the telephone for the help service desk when you start your application. Good luck.
Thank you, Laura, for your presentation. The idea of this presentation was to summarize for the newcomer in particular how to get, how to apply and how to submit the proposal. There are some of the elements described by Laura are new for also for the experienced applicants, because this is a new system that was introduced only with this programming period. And the advice, it's really always to check and to follow, and there are a lot of materials in the FTOP portal, so please go ahead, because afterwards, now that, for example, in capacity building, we are contractualizing in some of the project, we noticed that, that it would have been very interesting for all of you and also for us that the rules and the advice were followed from the beginning on. So really go ahead in this direction. There is we received a general question on the PIC number, how to register. I think that Laura explained it in details, but I really would like to also to give you an advice. There is a really very important functionalities in it, because you can check if your institution is already registered. Please go ahead. It's very simple. You can find it in the FTOP, and you can just put the name of your institution, and this will help you and will help also us in the future if you are selected, because one organization can have only one PIC number unless there are several legal entities inside, but these are very specific and a few cases like that. So the best thing to do before starting the process is to check if your institution has already a validated PIC number. Then we received several questions. I will answer The first one, because it's general, on the third countries associated to the program. I think that I know that the definition is complex, but there are 6 countries that are considered as third countries associated to the program, and these are North Macedonia, Serbia, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Turkey. And these are all the acceding countries, candidate countries, or potential candidates. This is the official definition. The third countries not associated to the program are all the others. But as we have tried to explain to you, of course, not all of them are eligible for all the actions. So it's really important that before starting to prepare a proposal, you check if your countries or your region is eligible for this particular action. Then I would like to invite also some of the colleagues, because we have received some general questions, and I will start with Pavel and for capacity building in VET, and I think that you should come here, unfortunately. But and there it's about the eligibility criteria of your action. You mentioned that you had some problems in the past call, so perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on this aspect.
Yes, thank you. I try to be short. My answer you can see on one slide. That was a slide summarizing the number of applications we received and what were the main problems. Each action has 3 types of criteria: admissibility, eligibility, and award criteria. Admissibility criteria, maybe it could be a strange word for some people. It's linked to technical part of the application. If you submitted the application in the correct form of the application you will find in the funding and tender opportunity portal. So please pay attention. In some cases, we received simply some kind of Word document. It was not an official application. These were the problems with admissibility criteria. Then the eligibility criteria. There were a problem. Some organizations coming from third country not associated to the program, so in very simple words, outside Europe, they were in the position of coordinator. They submitted on behalf of the whole consortium. This is not possible. Another problem with eligibility was there was not enough number of partners. As I already said, you need to have at least 4 partners. Of course, please have a look from which countries or regions they must come, but in general, 4 organizations must be in the application. There were only 3. In this case, the project was ineligible and was not evaluated from the qualitative point of view. Another problem was, I already informed you, we have 3 groups of countries, and the number of organizations coming from EU member states and third countries associated to the program, the number was higher than the number of organizations coming from third countries not associated to the program. Another problem was, I didn't mention it, but you will find it in the program guide, each organization can submit only 1 application. In 3 cases, we have organizations that submitted more than 1 application. In this case, if we receive from one organization 3 different applications on different topics, we will take into account and we will evaluate the first one that we received. And I think in few projects, unfortunately, the country from the region of third countries not associated was not involved. So I think this is summary of the problems. But I think, please, for all actions, this is not only linked to our actions, read carefully the program guide, and if I may kindly ask you, read it twice, because sometimes the eligibility criteria are quite complex. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Pavel, for your exhaustive answer. We will now proceed with another question for Jean Monnet, and in particular for the Jean Monnet action. And we would like, the potential applicant has requested which are the ranking of the professor that can apply. So please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Yes, indeed, we received a question from Greece, if I'm not wrong, regarding the ranking of the professor of a Jean Monnet chair, so the Jean Monnet chair holder. So the question is about which kind of profile has to have the chairholder. The only requirement we have for the Jean Monnet chairholder is that the chairholder has to have a permanent contract with the higher education institute he belongs to. So he can be, she can be, she can be either associate professor, assistant professor, or a professor. So I hope I clarify. So actually we do not care that much about the ranking within the applicant organization. We care more about the CV of the professor, whether the CV is in line with the proposed topics of the Jean Monnet chairholder, provided that such a professor has a permanent contract with the university. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you, Lenia, for your answer. I will now proceed with another question raised for virtual exchanges. So, Roland, thanks for coming. So the question is, can a virtual exchange project target 2 or more different eligible regions?
Thank you. Thank you. Indeed, this is one of the important elements which is maybe a different to other calls, that actually your focus should be on one of the eligible regions. Maybe let me just remind you of the regions. So it's Western Balkans, Neighborhood East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Southern Mediterranean countries. So basically, when you set up your consortium and you look for partners, it should be only for one project targeting one of these regions. No cross-regional projects are eligible under the virtual exchanges in higher education and youth call. Thank you.
Thank you, Roland. Very interesting. So another question was raised for Erasmus Mundus. So is about the consortia. If a consortia can apply for both Erasmus Mundus design measures and joint masters. So please go ahead, Jasper.
So there is no specific rule prohibiting that. As I explained, the two funding schemes are separate. They have different aims and different. They're two types of budget. Of course, double funding is not allowed, which just means that you cannot get twice funded for the same project. But of course, if you are a consortium already dealing with a joint master, but you want to set up a completely new joint master, you can do that through the design measure. So in that sense, it is actually possible to apply for both programs. The key word is just that it needs to be new, and you're not requesting funding for the exact same project. I hope that answers it.
Thank you, Jasper, very interesting. So the last question is for capacity building in higher education, and it's about the definition of newcomer. Newcomer are, according to the program guide, institutions that have never participated to the action that for which they would like to apply. We have also the concept of less experience. These are the ones that have participated, but perhaps not as coordinator, but just as partner, and with a limited role in the partnership or in their consortium. But of course, under strand one, because this was the main focus of the question, you can also experienced applicant can be included in the consortium, because we understand that newcomer would like to have some experience also in the partnership, but the main focus should really be on newcomer or less experience. So the idea is really to attract new organization, new higher educations that have never participated to the action. So this is the idea. So I thank all the colleagues who have participated to the sessions, all the registration will be published on the same website in which you registered, so very soon, hopefully at the latest next week, together with the slides. As we mentioned, please go ahead. We have functional mailbox for each action, so you can directly ask questions to the functional mailbox. And of course, we have also several info days that are planned in the next weeks and months. So if you have doubt, if you really think to apply, follow us and go ahead reading also all the documentation that is available on our website, on the Erasmus Plus website, and of course also for the technical aspect in the funding and tender opportunities portal. I really thank you all for your attendance and also the colleagues who participate, and I close the session. So thank you and good luck.